motion to over 83%, way beyond the required threshold of two-thirds, which is 67%, that is required at the next stage of voting for this motion.
All right, that's what transpired yesterday in the National Assembly, something that the nation was waiting with bated breath. Let me start with you, Honorable Gakuya. How did you get to this point where 2 years down the line we're impeaching the deputy president, something that to some extent had not been envisioned?
Well, let me say that this is a creation of disconnect of political relationship. And politics is like marriage. Because marriage, you can marry and you have a very nice time for building the relationship. But at a time when then the marriage is is effected, then some handles comes. And in this particular case, I would say the biggest monster in this particular matter is how the deputy president at some point was invoked, and this trigger emanated by some members of parliament. This was at Keharo, where there was some proposal that the deputy president comes from Nyeri, where already Nyeri have had president, and also that Kiambu has also had an opportunity, and therefore Moranga was asking for an opportunity where Gachagua can serve one term, and then there can be an exchange of the presidential here, then to be appointed from Moranga. Then that is where the heat started, and that heat kept on. And at a point, it's like Gachagua felt threatened, and he started now talking to his community. And when he started talking to the community, then in the political arena, it was viewed as if the man has become terrible. And then he was balkanizing the community toward a particular direction. But by the time when the deputy president was doing this, he was very clear to his statement that he is bringing the mountain together, because by the time that we went to an election, there was a big division in that region, where some percentage opted to go Uhuru Raila route, and others went Gachagua route side. And at that point, I think the politics started hitting, where members, elected members from the Mount Kenya community, because I would like to be very clear in this, that the battle for Gachagua has emanated from Mount Kenya. And this is due to political vendetta. And this is purely to the Kenyans that, in fact, even by the time when William Ruto appointed Gachagua, there was a big hit. And we almost took 24 hours in Kalen before the smoke was, there was a white smoke. Okay. And even by the time we had a white smoke, some of the contenders had already disappeared from the venue, very discomfortable. Okay. And I can tell you that as of now, this is a result of that, and there has been a political fear that this man has shown that in fact he can be able to direct the Mount Kenya region where to go. Okay. And those political fears has costed his commencement of being fired.
Before I bring in Honorable Gloria and Honorable Tatus, you say political vendetta. Why vengeance on Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, especially emanating from his own community? And of course, you say it started from Kiharu, but yesterday we did see members of parliament, most of them from Murang'a County, actually disassociating with themselves from whatever was happening in the House.
Yes, it went and cooled. And Dede Nyoro, I want to thank him very sincerely, because he's a man who listened. And the elders approached him, and he was able to listen to the elders, and he stood down. And I would also want to take this opportunity to thank the whole fraternity of Murang'a County, because they had stood with the Gachagua in totality for now. Right. And I would say that, in fact, that was the first trap. But in fact, the game changed from now Murang'a and moved out. And I can tell you that the current the only person between Gachagua and the president is none other than the member for Kikuyu constituency. He has been the biggest donor between the two, and he has made sure that this barrier has to be. And in fact, I can say today.
What would you say is the bone of contention that he has to go for the deputy president head on like that?
At this point, I would say it was that political fear that, in fact, Gachagua can have a say in the region, and at a point where maybe people may find themselves on the wrong side of the wave of Gachagua in that Mount Kenya region.
All right. Honorable Titus, let me bring you in on this one. Where did we go wrong? How did we get to this point? Because you have a deputy and a president that came in quote unquote as a pair, and looks like they had everything in control as far as running this government is concerned. Then division 2 years down the line, and right now it's like the relationship has suffered a major blow that it might not actually survive.
Well, the relationship has suffered a blow, and it will not survive. Whether the impeachment goes through or not, the relationship between the president and the deputy president is over. And so we cannot even talk about speculation as to whether they will come back together or not. What we know is that there is an overwhelming support of the impeachment from the National Assembly. And I will not want to delve so much about this matter, because even listening to the leader of majority yesterday in Parliament, Bwana Kimani Ichung'wah, he actually cautioned us from talking about this matter, because this matter is in Parliament now. And also, we know that the Deputy President, through the former UDA Secretary General, has gone to court on this matter. So for me, I will not want to discuss so much about this. The only thing I'll say is for Kenyans, because there are Kenyans who are saying that the two needs to go out together. But I want to direct these Kenyans to the articles in the Constitution, because when we were drafting this Constitution, it was envisaged that there is a time where people can come together, like we've seen the Deputy President and the President came together to form this government. But then it was envisioned that at one particular point, one of them could do something wrong that will call for his or her removal. And that's therefore, we had Article 144 and 145 that stipulates on how the President can be removed individually, not as a duo. And you have Article 150 that talks specifically on how the Deputy President can be removed. So it is wrong for Kenyans to start saying that kufa dereva, kufa makanga, because that was not in the Constitution. If it was, then we will have actually had only one article on the Constitution that talks about removal of both at the same time. So we have to appreciate the fact that Kenyans thought about this. And the fact that Kenyans thought about the removal of either the President or the Deputy President was an understanding that this could happen. And so what the members of Parliament are doing, so that we don't vilify the members of Parliament, they are actually implementing the provision of the Constitution. They are not doing anything wrong. They are just doing what Kenyans say. Should there be a problem within the President and the people of Kenya, remove him. Should there be a problem between the Deputy President and people of Kenya, remove him. And all the 11 counts that have been put before the Deputy President is out there for Kenyans to look, and it's actually out there for the Deputy President himself to come and defend. In fact, on the 8th, the Deputy President is going to be given chance to come and defend himself against all the counts. If he's able to defend himself properly and is going to be served, then Kenyans will know that he's being vilified for nothing. But if he's not able to defend himself, then let the provision of the Constitution take place. So I will not delve deep into this.
This is the thing. You're defending yourself before 83% members who've already, to some extent, decided your fate?
You know, this 291 members of parliament out of 349 basically is like a vote of no confidence to the deputy president, because what was required for these things to be tabled before parliament was only 117.
Yeah.
For motion to go through, we require 233. Already 291 have signed. So do we even need to discuss? Do we even need to vote? Because it's very clear that members have decided the deputy president is supposed to go.
Okay,
so the only thing
if you're talking about that, then you say that you're going to be given an opportunity for a fair hearing, and yet from what you're saying, it seems like it's already been decided. The dice has been cast, and the fate of this particular individual,
well,
even if they're coming, it's for formality purposes.
No, it's not for formality purposes. He's got the opportunity to convince members. You know, members need to be convinced, because the other side of the story has been put in before now, the 11 counts, which members know. We now need to hear from him. He can convince members.
Okay.
He can convince members that I am not the person that you are actually talking about. And if he convinces members, probably then we will see a lot of members dropping out and say we are not going to impeach him. So it is not cast on stone, but so far what is happening is that the deputy president has actually gotten from the National Assembly a vote of no confidence.
A vote of no confidence. Honorable Gloria Roba, how did he get to this particular point, a man that, some extent?
First of all, I want to give clarity. It's just that this kind of situation is unprecedented. But there is a technicality there that should not happen. The National Assembly, in this kind of impeachment motion, should act as the county assemblies act. They bring the motion, they debate it, they vote on the motion, they forward it to the upper house, which is the Senate, and that is where the deputy president is supposed to appear.
Okay.
That way, he's not going to. He's not supposed to go and defend himself over people who have already decided.
Yeah.
And that is the clarity I want to give. If you really read our standing orders and how it was envisioned and the Constitution, really the mandate of the National Assembly is to say we have reached our 117 for the motion, and then vote on the debate, convince each other, and then vote on the motion, and then the deputy president then. Then it is tabled. The same way the county assemblies, they say they are going to impeach the governor, they debate, and then they table it to the Senate, and now the Senate sits as a quasi-judicial process. Okay. So even what he's talking about, it is just that we don't have a precedent to quote, but I would argue and say, why is he going back to the National Assembly to defend himself over 83% of people who have already said it's a vote of no confidence. Yeah. They've already given out their judgment before even they've had to interrogate the basis of the impeachment. So if it should happen as it should happen, then he should not appear in the National Assembly. He should appear in the Senate.
He's been invited in the National Assembly. Is that unconstitutional? What exactly?
No, the thing is, we are in strange times, and as much as the Constitution is there, there's some gray areas. So this is going to now form the precedent of how in the future a deputy president would be impeached. So there's room to not really experiment, but to interpret the Constitution in certain ways. Okay. Because even if you are to go to a constitutional court and ask for a review and ask for what it means, they can't reference any. We have never impeached a deputy president. Okay. So that is what is happening. But now since he's appearing there, I'm waiting also to see how that will turn out, because to me the issue of having already voted and said we have no confidence in you is like saying, okay, come back now and try and convince us. But for me in Senate, and having witnessed and participated in several impeachment motions, I have heard Honorable Gakuya talking, and I was smiling because he's talking of the political context and the tribal context of the situation, which most of the times when you get an impeachment, it's not necessarily the black and white things. There is a political context in it, in every single impeachment, whether a governor, a deputy, that is what they're talking about. But when we come to the Senate, as a quasi-judicial court, we sit there and we don't look at the political context, we don't look at the tribal context, we don't look at who we like, who we don't like. What we look at is the 11 counts which have been brought. Okay. And then from the 11 counts, and this is why for me, I feel it is unnecessary for him to appear in the National Assembly, because then they are just doing political matters there. When now in the Senate, we look at, okay, what are the grounds for impeachment of a deputy president.
Okay.
And in our constitution is very clear. They've been stipulated physical or mental incapacity, gross violation, you know, serious reasons to believe that he has been participating in crime under national or international crime. So when we get it, we look, okay, is this a crime? Is this not a crime? Is this? You understand? It comes down to the technicality of the grounds for impeachment. And that's why I can tell you, there are some impeachment motions that come to the Senate. Like Kawira has been impeached 100 times. Sometimes it comes to the Senate and some of us who already know what grounds for impeachment are, you just look at the counts, you look at the evidence given, you can already vote on day one and say, this thing does not have water. Okay. So for me, in the Senate is where the battle is.
All right.
The National Assembly, as it stands, has already impeached the deputy president. Yeah.
Well, I think following up with what Senator is saying, let us just look at what happens to the counties. I remember when we talk about Governor Kawira Mwangaza, who has actually become a bane of impeachment, we've actually seen her defending herself even before the County Assembly of Meru. So I think it is important for the Deputy President to be given a chance, because if the same momentum moved from the National Assembly to the Senate, then we must definitely see the Senate operating and behaving like the National Assembly. It is going to be advantageous and positive for the Deputy President to be given a chance to state his facts, so that if at the time this thing now is moving to Senate, there will be a tweaking from the perspective of the Deputy President about his impeachment. So Senate will look at it a little bit different if he's given a chance to talk in the National Assembly. If he's not, then the momentum will definitely flow from the National Assembly
so
to the
hypothetically speaking, Brian, let me ask him, hypothetically speaking, so you have already presented the grounds in the National Assembly, right? You have already signed your signatures, whether 117 or 230, right? Then you call him to come and say, Ndoizi mashtaka, right? And then he says, listen, on this particular issue, I did A, B, C, D. On this particular issue, he defends himself. Then you still vote, however way you vote, because that is more political, right? Yeah. And then he comes to the Senate. So we might as well press rewind. Because he is going to be defending the same. That's what he's going to be defending. The charges are not going to change. The charges will not change.
You know, there is going to be a whole process in Senate. Like she said, Senate is supposed to be doing this thing, in essence. Because, you know, the president and the deputy president are not county leaders. And the reason why it has to come to the National Assembly. If it was a county leader like the governor, it would have been done at the county assemblies. And I've said, if we look at the county assembly of Meru, for example, as an example, we've actually seen Kawira Mwangaza standing in before the county assembly members and defending herself. So that even when then the whole thing comes to the Senate will have a perspective of both sides. I think what we are doing as the National Assembly is we are giving the Senate a very good opportunity to look at it more objectively, from listening from the council.
You don't trust the objectivity without
from the fact that are coming from the 11 counts, and then
not only that,
from what has come from the deputy
when
president
people
himself.
go to court, Brian, after impeachment, and trust me when I say this, because sometimes I hear questions being asked when we are impeaching either a deputy governor or a governor, and I hear either statements being made by the accused, and I can already tell you that they are laying grounds to go to court. And one of the things is procedure or fair hearing. And one of the things you can easily argue is, why am I going to two courts? Well, I'm going there to defend myself, and then I'm going to the Senate to defend myself. In fact, at this point, it is like fair, and without having to sound like a sympathizer of Gachagua, but really, when you go to court once. You don't, unless now you refuse that lower court and then you appeal. That's what I'm trying to say. So for me, it just feels like it's counterproductive, even to the people who are being accused, to have to go to two houses to defend themselves on the same counts. For me, the mandate on the National Assembly was very clear. Bring your 117 signatures, you've signed them, pass them, then debate the motion, convince each other, well, how are we voting, whether it is a 3-day debate or whatever. And then after that, the members vote. And then if you reach the threshold, which is 230 something, you say, by the way, from the National Assembly, as we have convinced each other through what was tabled, this guy needs to go. And then you table the motion to the Senate. Then the Senate, as the upper house, sits there and says, okay, now forget the politics. Forget this. Now, the technicalities of it, as we have been doing in impeachment. And you know, as a Senate, and I challenge you as a journalist, We do not have a voting pattern. Of all the impeachments that have happened in the last 2 years, Senate, you cannot say that there's a risk of Senate voting a certain way. Okay. Because nobody really understands what happens in Senate. And I keep telling them it's because in Senate, everybody takes whatever they take, they look at it, and with their capacity, they make their decision. And now, that is the fear that National Assembly is starting to show. That is why they're saying, let him come here and appear. Because it is like, you know, your Senate is a different animal altogether. Yeah. Okay. Let him come here and appear, and then we can also try and see, and we can, you know, gauge the mood, or we can influence or whatever. But really, they should not be afraid in the National Assembly. As judges, we have done this before. All right. And for us, we always go down to grounds for impeachment. I personally can tell you, on each and every impeachment I've participated in, I can tell you, we removed the deputy governor of Kisii. There was evidence of corruption in form of transactions of money. We did this and this, there was not this. I can give you justifications on every... As
to why you voted
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring the Honorable Gakuya before I take a bite here. Should the Deputy President appear before the National Assembly in terms of defending himself, considering the fact that 83% of these members have already, to some extent, signed his fate? And also, we have a Speaker and a Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly who are supposed to be arbiters in this particular debate, having made their stand as far as this conversation is concerned. To some extent, of course, the Speaker did not directly mention that, but somehow alluded to this conversation.
Let me say, the Constitution is very clear, and it has given guidelines on how to impeach the Deputy President. And it's not, there's nowhere it has mandated the National Assembly to take a route of inviting the DP to their panels. Because it is very clear that, in fact, their law is simple. If you can be able to assess the signatures that have been taken, the 291, okay. As of yesterday, we have had more than 2 members complaining that, in fact, their signatures, they never signed. And they were worried that how their signatures found themselves on the list. This tells you that, in fact, probably the whole list somehow was cooked. And if that happened, and you have also had the Speaker and her Deputy pronouncing themselves not to be partial in this, but to be taking side, then you don't expect a lot from that perspective. And I would wish that, in fact, there would be no time to waste for the Deputy President to be taking for a mock timing drama at the National Assembly for just 1 hour, and then where the die has already casted. And I can tell you for sure, there is nothing that you expect from the National Assembly, whether the Deputy President will appear there or not, because the die is casted. And I can tell you for sure, most of the members that are signed did not even have a room even to peruse the charges that actually are fronted for to this particular Deputy President, okay. Because it was a political direction and a political move with a political pressure. And I hope that, in fact, yes, the Speaker pronounced himself and the House Business Committee that there is a schedule to do with the public participation. But I think that should be a matter. That matter should be left to the Senate, because the Senate is the one given power by the Constitution to handle this aspect. And there is no need of those duplication. The National Assembly could have done in their space. They make a vote. Already they claim the 291, but it's better for the 291 to appear and vote in the floor. Then they close the business to Senate, okay. And the Senate proceed
the Senate gets to make the final decision on this. All right, I do want to take a break. Then we come back, take a look at some of the grounds in which the Deputy President is actually, you know, this is actually based on this particular impeachment, and also the impact, both political and, of course, national impact as far as this impeachment is concerned. We take a break, rather. We'll be back in a few.
Saturday morning won't be the same again.
Launch sequence activated.
Have a nice trip.
Oh yes! As K24 TV brings you Akili and me. Ubongo Kids, Next Generation, My World Kitchen, Muddle Earth, and MI High on Kids Zone from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Step into a world of emotions, relationships.
Kumbe mama, ulikuwa unafikiria kuolewa tena? Yaani unijali hata kidogo, wewe ni mbaya.
Dilemmas and complex